All right, let's get right into it. When you hear about a crisis brewing in the Middle East, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Oil, right? Of course. But what if I told you the biggest shock to the global economy isn't the one grabbing all the headlines? What if it's actually a metal? A metal that's in your car, your phone, and the very bones of our future infrastructure.
So let's set the scene. It's April 2026. Tensions in the Gulf are boiling over. Talks have collapsed, and the U.S. has just started a blockade of Iranian ports. Suddenly, all eyes are on the Strait of Hormuz, that critical narrow artery for so much of global trade.
And, of course, the global conversation immediately snaps to crude oil. It's totally predictable. Prices start surging, Brent crude is flying back over $100 a barrel. It's the classic knee-jerk reaction anytime there's trouble in this part of the world.
But here's the thing. That obvious story, it isn't the whole story. Not even close. Lurking just beneath the surface is a second, and you could argue, a much more complex crisis. See, the very same disruption that's choking off the flow of oil is also putting a massive squeeze on the global supply of aluminum. And that is the real shockwave we need to unpack.
Yeah, we're not talking about some minor tremor in the market here. This is a full-blown supply shock for a metal we all kind of take for granted. This disruption in the Gulf is turning a simple industrial material into a huge strategic problem.
So why is the Gulf so important for aluminum? Well, you might look at this and see that the region produces about 9% of the world's total. And you might think, okay, that's not huge. But that number is really misleading. If you take China out of the picture and just look at the rest of the world's export market, the Gulf share suddenly jumps to a massive 18%.
And that 18%, that's the number that really matters. That's the specific pool of metal that Western buyers in Europe, Japan, and the US are all counting on. Because of tariffs and all sorts of trade friction, just swapping in Chinese aluminum isn't really an option. So when this chunk of the market gets disrupted, there's almost nowhere else to turn.
And this is a huge deal because aluminum isn't some niche commodity. I mean, it is fundamental to pretty much everything in our modern world. It's in the cars we drive, the buildings we work in, and maybe most critically, it's essential for the green energy transition. We're talking solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles, you name it.
So the question is, how does a shipping problem in one little waterway spiral into a massive global shortage? Well, it sets off this powerful, three-step chain reaction that just ripples through the entire industrial economy.
Okay, so here's how it happens. First, the crisis chokes off shipping. That means finished metal can't get out, and just as important, the raw materials the smelters need can't get in. Then, the market gets squeezed. Buyers are already trying to avoid Russian metal, so now they're all competing for an even smaller supply. And finally, the premiums absolutely explode. Now think of a premium like an express shipping fee. It's the extra cash you have to pay on top of the market price just to get the physical metal delivered to your factory door. When that fee goes through the roof, you know there's a real physical shortage out there.
And listen, this isn't just a theory. The pain is real and it's happening right now. Reuters is reporting that Aluminum Bahrain, one of the biggest smelters in the world, has already had to cut almost 20% of its production just to hang on to the raw material stocks it has left.
So this is the crucial part, right? How do these abstract market signals, these exploding premiums, turn into actual real-world pain for businesses and for all of us? This is where the crisis jumps off the financial pages and lands squarely on the factory floor.
I mean, just look at this scoreboard. The real cost to get your hands on physical aluminum is just staggering right now. In Japan, the premium's at an 11-year high. In Europe, it's just surging out of control. And in the United States, it's exploded to a record $2,500 a ton. This isn't just numbers on a screen. This is the price businesses are paying right now just to keep the lights on.
And those prices, they have immediate and frankly painful consequences. We're already seeing reports of factories having to shut down and manufacturers facing these spiraling costs. The economic damage is spreading way beyond the Gulf.
So who's in the direct line of fire? Well, the impact is widespread, but some are definitely more exposed. You've got major importers like Japan and Europe feeling it immediately. The US, which still relies heavily on imports, is also incredibly vulnerable. And strategically, this is a direct hit to the very industries we're counting on for growth: transportation, construction, and, this is the big one, the entire green energy build-out.
So, let's just zoom out for a second. What's the bigger lesson here? This whole crisis is laying bare a deep vulnerability that's just baked into our global system. It's showing us where the risk really is.
For years, we've been obsessed with high-tech choke points, things like semiconductors, rare earth minerals, batteries. And don't get me wrong, those are definitely important. But this crisis is a really stark reminder that a profound vulnerability can also be hiding in something as basic as fundamental as an industrial metal trying to get through a single, narrow waterway.
And that is the ultimate lesson here. The real danger of a global choke point isn't the immediate headline about oil prices. It's the hidden shockwaves that come after, the second and third order effects that are way less visible, but can be so much more damaging to the entire global economy.
So yeah, everybody saw the oil shock coming. That was the headline. But the aluminum shock, that caught almost everyone by surprise. And it forces us to ask a really critical question. As we try to navigate this increasingly fragile world, what's the next critical system hiding in plain sight that we're all completely ignoring right now?